Hello everybody and welcome to the final installment of my top 100 Magic cards of all time. Now if you're like me, this might be the only thing that you watch of a top 100, but that's okay. Now again, I want to note here, this ain't the top 100 cards ever. This is mine. This is my listeners. There's a few picks here in the top 10 that are probably kind of weird in terms of top 100 lists that you would imagine, but it doesn't matter because it's my list. It matters to me. It's really sweet. Let's get started. Number 10 is Treachery. Now, Treachery is a 2 blue, 3 generic mana enchantment that just happens to be free and control magic. Control magic costs 4 mana. Treachery is free, same effect. Is it broke? Pretty sure it's broke. Now, Urza's Destiny followed Urza's Legacy, and it was just like the whole untap mechanic was just busted. It was busted. It is the most broken mechanic. Like Storm and or the untap mechanic just kind of keep fighting each other, and maybe Dredge is in there somewhere as well for the most busted, broken things that you can possibly do with Magic cards. So getting around that means that Treachery is the most powerful, incredible, take your thing, take your stuff, take the best thing that they're doing, whether it's in Cube, whether it's in EDH, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to see this card ever again in any other type of format because, well, it's on the reserve list, so they can't reprint it. So it's not going to be in Modern. It's not going to be in Standard. You never want this stuff in Modern and Standard. I mean, you know, basically there's going to be no real special editions of it. There's no sort of from the vault stuff or whatever, because they can't do that anymore. But Treachery to me is just, it's so unbelievably powerful. It's so sweet. It's just a good example of what kind of went wrong, but we still kind of get the benefits of it, so we can play really busted stuff like this. Treachery's always had a special place in my heart, partially for being ridiculously busted, but partially because it's a totally sweet card. The artwork is great, the flavor is fantastic, and it's just awesome. I just can't. It's so awesome. It's right there. Number 9 is Blinking Spirit. Now this is definitely the one where you're like, whoa, what is happening? It's okay. Now Blinking Spirit is the card that is the first Magic card I ever saw. The Ice Age Blinking Spirit, the rare, was on a desk in summer school. Light was coming through the window, shining on top of this desk with a bunch of Magic cards. And the first one I noticed was Blinking Spirit. And my buddy was like, you know, hey, you should check out this game. It's really cool. So I looked at it and I read Blinking Spirit and I was like, I think I understand some of what's going on here. And then they started explaining mana and how there's creatures and you want to deal damage and their life totals and stuff like that. And then I was like, well, but there's a 0 right there. And they're like, yeah, that means you can pick it up. And I was like, well, I mean, but you said that you can respond to stuff. And he said, yeah, you can pick it up in response. And I was just like, you can't ever kill that creature? And they were like, yeah, that's a cool thing, man. Blinking Spirit, right? It just keeps kind of coming back. And I was just like, and it was just, you know, a small thing, but it was one of those like unlocking, oh my God, a game can do that type of moments. I mean, you know, when you grow up in a world of Monopoly and Sorry and card games, like you can't imagine that something could be that intricate, that deep, or even have something like that just kind of sounds busted, like a creature you can't ever get rid of. So Blinking Spirit for me is always just, it's just right there because I always imagine when I think back, you know, and you kind of replay those memories in your head, that's where it starts. Light through the window, Blinking Spirit on the thing. I read it. I figure out that this happens. The light turns on, just like it kind of turns on Blinking Spirit's head. And here we are with my 9th most favorite card. Number 8 is Jester's Cap. Yeah, we're keeping it weird. Now, Jester's Cap is just one of the most iconic artworks in all of Magic, and Wizards knew it. They absolutely plastered Jester's Cap on top of everything. Now, and I'm not talking about any of that new crap because it's nowhere near as good as Dan Frazier's amazing original. Just that little, like, sort of that smirk and that smile. Everything about it is just so well done. But here's the key, and here's the reason it's so high up on my list. This was the first Chase Rare that I've ever seen. Now, when I was starting to play Magic, you know, it was the era of Ice Age. Ice Age boosters were out, and people were playing Ice Age all the time, and the thing to do was to find a Jester's Cap, because Jester's Jester Cap was busted. That card lets you go through other people's decks. That's crazy. You could take out everything that's going to wreck it. You could take out all their sideboard cards. And people just like lost their minds over this thing. So this was like a $20 rare, which was unheard of at the time. It's particularly in standard. And people were just trading for it like crazy. And so when you opened a Jester's Cap, it was special. It was like a moment. And people were, you know, me and my friends were freaking out. And a buddy of mine got a booster box. And man, when he pulled that Jester's Cap, we were hooting and hollering. And we were all super excited. It was great. So Jester's Cap is just one of those cards that taught me not only that it's a chase rare, that it's one of the cards that people want the most, but when we started playing with it, we figured out it's not even really that good. And that was a weird disconnect, you know, because it read really cool and it sounded really cool, but when you actually got to play it, it didn't happen. So it was not only just my first real chase rare, it was also my first real kind of chase rare letdown. So with that being unbelievably iconic artwork, like my first ever chase rare and my first ever big letdown, you know, there's a lot of history in this card for me, but ultimately, you know, Jester's Cap is a cool card. I don't think it's even really played much anymore, but man, that artwork is just fantastic. Number 7 is Lightning Bolt. It deals 3 damage to 1 target. That's what it does. It says it right there. Beautiful artwork by Christopher Rush. I think, you know, clearly he nailed it. It's not like the most difficult art piece I'm sure they asked him to paint, but, you know, still, Lightning Bolt is as Lightning Bolt does, and I absolutely rank Lightning Bolt higher than Ancestral Recall or Time Walk. Like, its impact in my life and the ability to play Lightning Bolt, the stories around it, the power behind it. You know, I was there at the Pro Tour in Honolulu, and I was talking to an R&D member, and this was right before Magic 2010 was even being spoiled. It was, you know, it was coming, and, you know, we were really excited to see what was going to happen in a base set that was, you know, supposed to be like totally turned upside down, and what are they going to do? Anyway, at one point I was talking to him, and I was, you know, talking to him about like Lightning Bolt, and I said, you know, well, they're never going to reprint Lightning Bolt. It's just too good. It's ridiculous. Like, the best we're ever going to get is like Incinerate or whatever. And he kind of had like that look, you know, he can't say anything, but you know, like, you felt like a thing. And he's like, I'm like, okay. You know, and he kind of laughed along, you know, with me, and that was fine. It was just one of those moments where you're like, is really, you know, and it's the seeds of doubt were there at that point. But, you know, but again, I was like, there's no way. Come on. You don't print Lightning Bolt in Standard. It's going to be the best. Oh my God, it's in Magic 2010. So that's kind of what happened. So Lightning Bolt, turns out, was the best burn spell, was the best removal spell, and everything that was 3 toughness or less just couldn't pass the Lightning Bolt test, which meant it was more or less kind of bad. So 4 toughness became a very magical toughness. But Lightning Bolt is just, it's been reprinted like, what, like 15 times or something, or 10 times? It doesn't matter. No matter how many times you print Lightning Bolt, that thing is worth like $1 or more, just every single time, because everyone needs a set of Lightning Bolts, whether they're new, whether they're old, they learned the game, or they've been here forever. Lightning Bolt is unbelievable. Wizards, now the power creep of Lightning Bolt, I just don't, you're not going to see it surpassed. You're not going to see 1 red deal 4 damage to target creature player. Like, they're going to be a Flame Slash, where you deal it to creatures or whatever, but that's fine. But creature or player, no. Lightning Bolt is not to be surpassed. It is always to be respected. It is a cornerstone of Magic as we know it. It defines Red as we know it. Lightning Bolt is awesome. Number 6 is 3 Dudes Seriously, also known as Spectral Procession. So the 3 Dudes Seriously thing came from me making a show a long time ago, Galaxy Far, Far Away, about Shadowmoor. So I made a show about Shadowmoor, and they released these crazy hybrid cards, and oh my God, what's going to happen? We had no idea. We'd never seen anything like this before. The mana symbol was kind of there, but so was the generic mana symbol, so that's really cool. And they had this whole cycle in there, Beseech the Queen and Advice from the Fae and all that good stuff. And Spectral Procession was there, and I was, looking back, you know, that 2020 hindsight thing, but looking back, it's a little ridiculous. But I was kind of upset because I thought the white one was not very good. I was just like, 3 dudes? Seriously? That's what we get here? 3 dudes? You can look it up. As a result of being so unbelievably wrong about Spectral Procession, well, I got a little known for being wrong about Spectral Procession. In fact, 3 Dudes Seriously has continued to this day, and there are multiple people who are aware of what that means, and that's kind of fun and cool for me. So yeah, it was a huge mistake, but sometimes you just gotta, like, you know, you just gotta jump in and take ownership of it. The worst thing you can do if you make Magic content, or honestly, if you make more or less any content, or if you do anything on the internet where you espouse your opinion, is to not have one. If I were to say, like, oh, here's this cycle, and I think it's kind of okay, and maybe this one's good, but I'm not really sure about this other one, and blah, 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 and wishy-washy, nobody gives a crap. Like, yeah, it's fantastic when you get it right, and it's also kind of fantastic when you get it wrong, because it gives you something to laugh at, something to talk about. Spectral procession, amazing card. Like, clearly turned out to be a format-defining staple, a cube powerhouse. Like, Spectral procession is great. There's no question about that. The only question is sort of how long can this meme go? How long can this joke last? Well, as long as I want it to. Spectral procession is awesome. Giant Solifuge. Now, Giant Solifuge is not necessarily called Giant Solifuge to me. Well, let's tell the story of how Giant Solifuge became Cat and Tickles. Well, my buddy Chris, as it turns out, who I still know and still talk to multiple times a week, even now, 10 plus years ago, Ravnica's coming out, Giant Solifuge is coming out. My buddy Chris is a master at sort of like silly goodness. He's also a master at explaining things, but that's different. Anyway, so he was a master of like giving kind of silly, ridiculous nicknames to things, but the one that stuck was Captain Tickles. And why is it Captain Tickles? Why is it like he's a pirate captain? I don't know. Why is it Tickles? I don't know, because it's funny. And there's just something weird about it. So, I called him Captain Tickles. People are enjoying it. I certainly enjoyed it. I just kind of got in the car and drove with that thing. I was like, before it was over, I was making songs about Captain Tickles that you can find if you Google hard enough. Yeah, it's silly, and he's going to come and get you, and he's going to tickle you all up, because that's what Giant Solifuge does. It's a bonus that the card was very good. It's a bonus that the card saw Pro Tour play. It was very powerful. I'm glad of that. That's cool, but at the end of the day, what happened with Giant Solifuge, I definitely think that when I first got started and I first kind of hung on to these little gems that kind of fell in my lap, like this one, I really think that sort of helped propel me from just dude in his room in Tennessee to being able to fly all around the world, making the show as you know it today, doing what I do today. So Giant Solifuge, Captain Tickles, is definitely up there. Oh, we're getting big now. Number 4 is Jace the Mind Sculptor. Oh, yeah. Now we're back to what you would describe as the normal choices. Jace the Mind Sculptor, as Patrick Chapin has so clearly stated, is better than all. Jace the Mind Sculptor, for those who weren't around in World Wake, they did something very special when they spoiled him. They actually cut him up into pieces and mailed physical pieces of cards all around the country, all around the world, and had fans basically piece it all together. And here's the real killer. When they finally pieced it all together, everybody figured out what he did. He was the first Planeswalker with 4 abilities. Oh my god, the artwork is unreal. It's 4 mana. Okay, but it only has 3 loyalty. All right, well, it doesn't really has a 0. Doesn't actually go up or down. People were not excited about Jace the Mind Sculptor. People actually said that it wasn't that good. Even after it came out, they said it wasn't that good. The reason for that was because Bloodbraid Elf existed. So when Jace the Mind Sculptor first came out, it did not define formats, because one of the best aggro creatures of all time that is still banned in Modern to this day was keeping it in check. It had 3 power that was hasty, so it could come in and knock down Jace, or if they went +2, you could knock it down to size where they would have to do something about it. When Bloodbraid Elf left, when Shards left us. Oh boy. Well, when Shards left us, Jace was left to his own devices, and oh my god, did he crush. Jace the Mind Sculptor eventually got banned along with Stoneforge Mystic, because that power duo was seen in Legacy, and there was this great time where Aaron Forsythe said something along the lines of, try Legacy, where you can play such standard stalwarts as Jace the Mind Sculptor and Stoneforge Mystic. So, when that was becoming a deck in one of the most powerful formats that exist, you really got to take a look at how good the deck that is driving Jace the Mind Sculptor. There was Cawblade with Stoneblade, with sort of Feast and Famine, and Stoneforge Mystic, and Jace the Mind Sculptor, and Squadron Hawk. Squadron Hawk, the 1 white, 1 generic mana 1/1 that when it enters the battlefield, you can go find copies of it. That was huge because it gave you the easiest shuffling effect ever, but also let you protect Jace, and also gave you an evasive blocker to chump block with. So all of those things were there, and also gave you an evasive attacker for the swords. Like, oh, it was ridiculous. And did you know that sort of Feast and Famine originally had them discard at random, not just discard? Think about it. Either way, Jace the Mind Sculptor is just, it's just beauty. It's just wonderful. It's so ridiculous, and it's a card that I just don't see them coming close to the power level of Jace. I see them, getting close to the power level of maybe some other Planeswalkers, but Jace is the best. There's no argument. There's no sort of like, well, maybe it's Liliana, or maybe it's this Elspeth, or no. Jace is the best. He continues to see play in Vintage and Legacy, and probably forever will. It's Brainstorm for free. And, you know, when I got to talk to Mike Turian, when I got to talk to all those guys who worked on World Wake, and I was just like, well, you know, what I can't, and you can go back and watch. I have an entire interview where I'm just like, what happened? Like, how did this happen? Like, well, he's fun, right? Like, yeah, he's fun. Like, being better than everything else is fun for a while. So when he's relegated to the older busted formats, when he's relegated to the cubes and the EDHs where you can only play one copy, he's amazing. And Jace is better than all. Almost. Number 3 is Library of Alexandria, one of the most iconic cards in Magic. The artwork that I absolutely adore. I can't stand it. Mark Poole did such an amazing job. It was one of those cards that when I first got into Magic and I first started exploring the older sets, and which was not the easiest thing in the world, honestly. I mean, I lived in a world without the internet. I know it's crazy, but there was a world without the internet, which means you couldn't just look up the picture of every single Magic card anymore. You had to actually go find something. There were printed Magic encyclopedias. Let's not forget that. Because you just couldn't search for like Gather or whatever and show me everything. But when I found Library of Alexandria, I was like, whoa, I get to draw cards. It's from Arabian Nights. The set is fantastic. The art is ridiculous. And when I finally got to play with it in the cube, oh my God, like I traded for one back in the day. I have owned one Library of Alexandria. I didn't own it for a very long time because I had to sell my collection shortly thereafter, but I owned it and I loved it, and I held it, I squeezed it, I called it George. And Library of Alexandria is just raw power. If you get it on turn 1 in the cube, it is really hard to lose. It's difficult, but you can do it. It's possible. But Library of Alexandria just has so many fantastic memories for me. The power level is just crazy. And I tell you, this is the only card whose artwork I've purchased as a print when I was at Origins. I think it was 2004 or so. I was at Origins and Mark Poole was there and he had prints of Library of Alexandria. I'm like, oh my God, it's my favorite artwork. Holy cow, Mark Poole, you're amazing, blah, blah, blah. Fanboy gush, fanboy gush. Got it printed, brought it home. It was fantastic. I love Library of Alexandria. I love the power. I love the art. I love the feeling. I love the fact that it was just so good back in the day. They had no idea what they were doing, and sometimes they catch lightning in a bottle, and Library is so sweet. Would never be designed like this ever again. But what we have is beautiful. What we have is perfect, and Library of Alexandria just makes me happy. It makes me happy in all my Magic places. We're not going to go too far down that road, but it makes me super happy. I love Library of Alexandria. It is number 3. Number 2 is Sol Ring. Sol Ring, you busted. You so busted. How busted is you? You get to spend 1 mana and get 2 out of it immediately. Not next turn, not whenever you have to put counters or something on it. It's just right there. And, you know, they didn't really understand the mana system when the game first started. I mean, clearly, Moxen, whatever. But Sol Ring, wow, that card has just stood the test of time as the most busted mana producer of all time. The card is crazy, crazy good. The ability to open one right now and Kaladesh as an invention, it's just like, that is the ultimate Magic player dream, that you get that in limited, whether it's sealed or whether it's draft. Because turn 1 Sol Ring is crushing. Like when I built my cube and we started playing with the cube, Sol Ring like requires you to build around it. Library of Alexandria is actually very much the same way. When I had Sol Ring in there, I had to make sure that every color had an answer. Every color could do something. Every color, I mean, yes, they have Phyrexian Revoker. They can use Pithing Needle. That's fine. Like, you know, you need to have some sort of way to destroy lands with this Library of Alexandria, whether it's deal with artifacts with its Sol Ring, because these cards are so good and so powerful. Everything will warp itself around them. If you're able to get turn 2 Jace the Mind Sculptor, I mean, you know, you get it, you're watching this, and if you don't, let me tell you, it is an advantage that is unlike any other. It is free, nothing bad happens, you don't have to flip any coins to see if it damages you like Mana Crypt. Like, you just get 2 mana. You just get to play with all of the best toys before your opponent ever gets a chance to get started. Like, even late, you're able to pump mana into whatever, or definitely turn 1 is where it always shines the brightest. Sol Ring is clearly an aberration of design. Clearly not a card you ever want to see ever again in any sort of constructed format. But, you know, its artwork is amazing. The ability to be revisited because it's not on the reserve list is fantastic. It is a card that will go into any EDH deck to the point where they put one in every commander deck for like many years, as I recall. Like every one of their commander releases had a Sol Ring in it because it's just so good. It's so useful. It goes in any deck. It goes in any cube. It goes right into my Magic player's heart right there because I love it. Sol Ring's super good, super powerful. And it is our number 2, which means... yes, here we are. Number 1 is Black Lotus. We have reached the end of my top 100 because Black Lotus is the flower in the grove at the end of our hike. At the end of our journey, we have come upon the opening where Chris Rush has made one of the most incredible, impactful, beautiful, iconic artworks of all time. Wizards has certainly known what the best Magic card, at least to the layman, to people who don't even know Magic, they've heard of Black Lotus. When they first made the Pro Tour, it was the Black Lotus Pro Tour. Like, they understood that the Black Lotus was clearly the number 1 craziest thing to come out of Magic. It is most beautiful, most sought after, most expensive. It's always been like that card. It's always been the card that you can tell people about from the beginning because it's so expensive. It's been the card you can tell new players about because it's so busted. It's been the card that's been on everything because it's some of the most beautiful artwork ever produced. Chris Rush, you know, RIP, because man, he took this idea of a special flower and turned it into something that we look at and we fawn over and we talk about, and the words always crack me up because, like, it's a huge, you know, it's a huge explanation of what it does. You know, it actually says the word tap, actually says tapping can be played as an interrupt, stuff like that. I'm talking about the original version, but you know, the beauty of the Black Lotus, the power, the significance of Black Lotus cannot be underestimated. Like, if Black Lotus hadn't existed, where would Magic be? If Black Lotus hadn't existed, what was the ultimate iconic artwork that would be associated with the game? What is the ultimate iconic card that people would talk about? Because if you're looking at like a newscast that your mom or your uncle or whatever are going to see, they're going to talk about Black Lotuses. They're going to talk about when somebody opened a Black Lotus. They're going to talk about when somebody opened, you know, a Black Lotus from a certain product or found a Black Lotus in bulk. You know, those are the types of things that are such aberrations. And if you look at all that combined together, up on the throne, at the very top, has to be Black Lotus. Has to be the most powerful card. It's ridiculous. It's unbelievable in cube. Clearly, turn 1, thanks. Like, you think, like, Sol Ring is amazing because it's advantage beyond that. And that's why Sol Ring, when you're taking it in a cube, you normally take it first over the Black Lotus because Black Lotus is obviously nuts, but Sol Ring giving you 2 mana every single turn is ridiculous. And right behind it is Black Lotus giving you 3 mana of any one color. It's a card that doesn't need a lot of introduction, just a little bit. You just really need the name. And you can let that light that comes in from the corner, let it shine down on one of the best, one of the most amazing, my favorite Magic card of all time, Black Lotus. But that does it for my top 100 Magic cards of all time. I want to thank you guys so much for watching my stuff, for hanging out with me, talking about some Magic cards, talking about my favorite Magic cards. Black Lotus is at the very tip top, as it should be. It's just, you know, it's been really fun going down memory lane, telling a few stories about my favorite cards. I hope you guys got a kick out of it. If you like what I made here, please subscribe so you can see more of my stuff. Like it so people can find me and see that I exist. And comment so I can know about the top 100 Magic cards that you might have. So until next time, Magic players, this is Evan Irwin, tapping the cards so you don't have to.